So, welcome everyone to this meditation and discussion session. So, to start off we're going to do a meditation on today's text reading. It's from section 6 of chapter 2 on Course in Miracles text, and I'll also guide you through today's workbook lesson, which is pretty short at the end of it. So just going somewhere where you're not going to be disturbed, putting your phone on mute or silent, just sitting comfortably, feet shoulder width apart, your favorite meditation posture. So if sitting on a chair, sit with your back straight, feet shoulder width apart, cup your hands on your lap, keep your back straight. Close your eyes. You could sit cross-legged on the floor. You could sit in bed with your feet out in front of you. Make sure you're comfortable and your back is straight. Those are only two requirements for a meditation posture. And close your eyes. Just start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. Breathing in, notice how the stomach rises. Blowing the stomach up like a balloon. Squeeze the sphincter muscle. That's the muscle you use to contract the flow of urine. Squeeze the last drops out. Breathing in, notice how the air flows into the stomach and the chest, in through the nose. Notice this warm life energy rising up the spine, into your heart center. Put one hand on your heart to connect in with your heart space. Bring your attention completely into the present moment. So there's nowhere else to go, there's nothing else to do, there's nothing else to think about. The next 20 minutes or so, just breathe, relax, be still, and let me guide you through this process. So take another deep breath in, and just draw this warm wave of energy, feel it rising up and cresting like a wave in the ocean. In the crown of your head, you can just pause at the top there, smile, and just check in with your mind, your thoughts, your emotions. Just notice what's going on. Any thoughts and emotions, particularly anything that's negative in nature, that feels contracted, limiting, restricting, unpleasant. Just tune into that and notice. Notice what you're feeling. Mentally, emotionally, physically, even a subtle tension in your knot in your stomach, tightness in your chest, clenched jaw, clenched fists, dry mouth, tension anywhere in your body. Just notice that and breathe into it. This is to create some space, some awareness that starts the process of letting go of this negativity. You just breathe into it, you smile, and you feel it starting to dissipate, starting to let it all go. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about for the next little while. Just breathe, relax, and be still, and let go. So as you exhale, just blowing all of that negativity out, the thought, the emotion, the feeling of it, any physical sensations, just letting it all go, dropping it away into the nothingness that it really is. Stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out and just rest here in quiet and stillness for a few moments. Just really enjoying peace that arises in these gaps. Mindful of the gap. All these words, meditations, practices are designed to point you into that gap. Become more and more aware of that, because therein lies peace, happiness, love, joy, everything you truly want in the gap between your thoughts, the gap between breaths. So breathe in again. Just notice how the stomach rises, the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through your nostrils. Squeeze the sphincter muscle, notice the life energy rising up into your heart center. Put one end of your heart, foot drop down, forward up into the crown of your head. Just pause at the top of the inhale, smile. Noticing that maybe there's a little bit more space, a little bit more awareness, a little bit more light, we call it, in your mind, and just enjoy that, smile. And exhale this time, keep your mouth closed, blow it out through your nose, make a little sighing sound in the back of your throat. Chest and the stomach just suck back in. And the energy subsides back down into the front channel of your body. You need to rest in your lower stomach, and your spine. Pause there, notice the stillness in the gap for a few moments, and then repeat the cycle, breathing in, and just watching, stepping back and watching all these subtle sensations of the breath. Just noticing how the breath just happens to you, through you, and for you. So there's no conscious effort, no stressing, straining, striving involved. Just allow it to happen and watch it. And notice how peaceful it is when you do that. So just keep watching your breath, keeping your mind focused on all these subtle sensations of the breath. That stops the thinking mind, creates some space, some awareness for you to receive these powerful words from today's lesson. But just listen in a way that's non-intellectual. You're not really listening with your mind, not trying to analyze, criticize, judge, resist, intellectualize. Just kind of let these words drop in and you feel into them, feel the energy, frequency, if you like, that they're pointing to. They all point to the gap. They all point to this place of ultimate peace, happiness, and joy. And if you experience that in this meditation through these words, then you're truly understanding it. It's way beyond intellectual understanding. intellectual understanding will come of itself once you have an experience of these words. Experience more peace and love and joy, and the benefits of these become self-evident, then you are convinced. The only thing that stops you is your resistance. Somehow your ego thinks it's got a better idea than eternal love, peace, and joy. And this is why we meditate and read these lessons and do all spiritual practice, is to convince ourselves otherwise, to undo this false belief. So just keep watching your breath to stay in this nice, still, calm, empty, open, aware state. Just allow these words to drop in to your awareness. It's like pebbles in a pond. A very still, calm, windless day, and then just plopping in. Because your mind, which is the pond in this analogy, is so still, ripple effects are going to be very noticeable. They're going to ripple all the way into the depths of your subconscious mind, which is where they need it to undo the default thought system of the ego. The idea of separation. That's all it is. So keep watching your breath. I'll remind you to do that every so often. To listen to these words from section 6 of chapter 2 of the text of A Course in Miracles, titled Fear and Conflict. So have a look at, this is why we look at the ego. Because when you look at it, become aware of it, become self-evident that it's pretty nutty, it's an insane thought system. And that helps you to let it go. So it's a paradox. You have to look at it to become aware of it before you can truly let it go. Let's hear what Jesus has to say on this topic of fear and conflict and how they're related. So he says, being afraid seems to be involuntary, something beyond your own control. And yet I have said already that only constructive acts should be involuntary. My control can take over everything that does not matter, while my guidance can direct everything that does, if you so choose. Fear cannot be controlled by me, but it can be self-controlled. Fear prevents me from giving you my control. The presence of fear shows that you have raised body thoughts to the level of the mind. This removes them from my control and makes you feel personally responsible for them. This is an obvious confusion of levels. So just pause here, watch the breath. Jesus is talking about surrendering your own control, giving it over to Him or to the Holy Spirit. This presence of love in you, so a higher mind, which has a wisdom that your ego simply cannot know. And he's saying, whenever you have fear, you have raised body thoughts to the level of the mind. In other words, you are thinking about the body and its apparent sense perceptions, and you're raising those to the level of the mind. You're thinking about those, which is a confusion of levels. Body and the world are on one level. This is the ego's domain, the ego's level, and spirit is on another one. So it's saying our whole problem is we confuse between these levels. And so he continues to clarify. He says, I do not foster level confusion. You must choose to correct it. You would not excuse insane behavior on your part by saying you could not help it. Why should you condone insane thinking? Let's pause and reflect on that. You are responsible for what you think. And what you think determines what you behave, how you behave. So he continues to clarify, there is a confusion here that you would do well to look at clearly. You may believe that you are responsible for what you do, but not for what you think. The truth is that you are responsible for what you think, because it is only at this level that you can exercise choice. What you do comes from what you think. You cannot separate yourself from the truth by, quote, giving autonomy to behavior. This is controlled by me automatically as soon as you place what you think under my guidance. Whenever you are afraid, it is a sure sign that you have allowed your mind to miscreate and have not allowed me to guide it. Just pause, keep breathing, watching your breath, staying nice and still, calm, empty, open, but aware. Just to absorb the powerful message and frequency, the energy of these words. Jesus is pointing to the fundamental dilemmas and any kind of transformation, any kind of attempt to change. So often we direct change towards the behavioral level. We say, well, you just do that and do that. Change your behavior like this and it will be sorted. And yet we're not looking at the thoughts that are driving the behavior, because that's harder to do. So in business and corporate world, often behavioral training is given. Just do this, give people some new skills. If you don't change their attitude, in other words, their thoughts, then behavioral change doesn't happen, it's not sustainable. As Jesus continues, he says, it is pointless to believe that controlling the outcome of misthought can result in healing. In other words, false thoughts, and trying to control the outcomes of these false thoughts, trying to improve them, trying to make them better, trying to alleviate some of the false consequences, is pointless. The outcome of misthought can never be healing. When you are fearful, you have chosen wrongly. That is why you feel responsible for it. You must change your mind, not your behavior. And this is a matter of willingness. You do not need guidance except at the mind level. Correction belongs only at the level where change is possible. Change does not mean anything at the symptom level, where it cannot work. So he reiterates this principle. Trying to fix the symptoms, not going to work. We've invented all kinds of means, magic means, pills, medications, spells, material means to try and change things externally. But change does not mean anything at those levels. Correction belongs only at the level where change is possible in your mind. So he continues, the correction of fear is your responsibility. When you ask for release from fear, you are implying that it is not. You should ask instead for help in the conditions that have brought the fear about. These conditions always entail a willingness to be separate. At that level, you can help it. You are much too tolerant of mind wandering and are passively condoning your mind's miscreations. The particular result does not matter, but the fundamental error does. The correction is always the same. Before you choose to do anything, ask me if your choice is in accord with mine. If you are sure that it is, there will be no fear. So again, pause, watch your breath. Jesus is very clear here, saying we're much too tolerant of our mind wandering. We allow our thoughts to wander all over the place. And because we don't exercise discipline in our thoughts, we are passively condoning our mind's miscreations. In other words, we're allowing the ego to run riot in our minds. If it dictates our thoughts, it's going to dictate our actions and our behavior. And it's in charge, it's running our life. That's what it wants. The whole point of this teaching is to undo its hold, to loosen its grip on our minds. Start questioning the belief in fear. So let's continue with that process. So it goes into an analysis of how fear arises in the next paragraph. He says, fear is always a sign of strain, arising whenever what you want conflicts with what you do. The situation arises in two ways. First, you can choose to do conflicting things, either simultaneously or successively. This produces conflicted behavior, which is intolerable to you because the part of the mind that wants to do something else is outraged. Second, you can behave as you think you should, but without entirely wanting to do so. This produces consistent behavior, but entails great strain. In both cases, the mind and the behavior are out of accord, resulting in a situation in which you are doing what you do not wholly want to do. This arouses a sense of coercion, which usually produces rage, and projection is likely to follow. Whenever there is fear, it is because you have not made up your mind. The mind is therefore split, and your behavior inevitably becomes erratic. Correcting at the behavioral level can shift the error from the first to the second type, but will not obliterate the fear. So just pause there, reflect on that. Really just saying that our behavior and our thoughts must be consistent. We must want to do what we are doing. If we coerce ourselves, we force ourselves. This is why overt systems of control, designed of behavioral control, do not work. Well, you should do this. There's this rule of behavior, this rule of conduct. And yet these don't work because if people don't want to behave that way, then there's a sense of conflict. It entails great strain, and often they rebel against these rules. They're doing all kinds of things that are quite dysfunctional. The rebellion to this seemingly externally imposed authority. And actually it's their own mind that's split. It's their own mind that's given authority to another belief system. And the only way out of that is to drop that thought system, to let go of it, the false authority, and turn your mind to oneness, where there is no split. There's only perfect consistency between thought and action. And behavior is always consistent. What you think when you are in the light. And that is the true definition of integrity. Thought, word, and action in alignment, always. That's why we do the spiritual practice. That's what we're working towards. And more consistently sane in our decision-making, in our thoughts, in our actions, in our behavior. And the results then speak for themselves. We enter into a state of grace in our minds that results in a state of flow in our lives. Fear disappears, conflict dissipates. We find we can actually be pretty happy and peaceful even in a seemingly chaotic world. So it is possible to reach a state in which you bring your mind under my guidance, Jesus continues, without conscious effort. This implies a willingness that you have not developed as yet. The Holy Spirit cannot ask more than you are willing to do. The strength to do comes from your undivided decision. There is no strain in doing God's will, the will of this eternal loving presence that we can call God, as soon as you recognize that it is also your own. The lesson here is quite simple. but particularly apt to be overlooked. I will therefore repeat it, urging you to listen. Only your mind can produce fear. It does so whenever it is conflicted in what it wants, producing inevitable strain because wanting and doing are discordant. This can be corrected only by accepting a unified goal. So he's giving us the correction. He never leaves us with the problem. He always gives us the answer. Keep watching your breath, staying nice and still, calm, empty, open but aware as we continue through this profound section. So the first corrective step in undoing the error is to know first that the conflict is an expression of fear. Say to yourself that you must somehow have chosen not to love, or the fear could not have arisen. Then the whole process of correction becomes nothing more than a series of pragmatic steps in the larger process of accepting the atonement, or the Atonement as I prefer saying it, as the remedy. These steps may be summarized in this way. Know first that this is fear. So in other words, be aware of it, acknowledge it. This is fear I'm feeling. Fear arises from lack of love. It has no positive quality of its own, it's simply a lack of what is true, which we can call love. The only remedy for lack of love is perfect love. So replace the lack with perfect love, and that is the atonement. Perfect love is the atonement. Pretty simple logic, really. Not rocket science, but he has to state the obvious because our minds have become confused and delusional. The ego's thought system does not make sense when you really analyze it logically. That's what he's trying to show us with this teaching in the text and the workbook. The text is really about looking carefully at the ego's thought system and its faulty logic and exposing it, undoing it. So he continues, he says, I have emphasized that the miracle or the expression of Atonement is always a sign of respect from the worthy to the worthy. Recognition of this worth is re-established by the Atonement. It is obvious then that when you are afraid, you have placed yourself in a position where you need Atonement. You have done something loveless and chosen without love. This is precisely the situation for which the Atonement was offered. The need for the remedy inspired its establishment. As long as you recognize only the need for the remedy, you will remain fearful. However, as soon as you accept the remedy, you have abolished the fear. This is how true healing occurs. So it's very simple. Just see the error, see it, recognize the remedy, restore your mind to this place of oneness. And fear must disappear. Fear and love cannot coexist in your mind. And this is how true healing occurs. Everyone experiences fear, yet it would take very little right thinking to realize why fear occurs. If you appreciate the real power of the mind, and no one remains fully aware of it at all the time. However, if you hope to spare yourself from fear, there are some things you must realize and realize fully. The mind is very powerful and never loses its creative force. It never sleeps. Every instant it is creating. It is hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. Thought and belief created the entire illusory world. So you can create an entire world, cosmos, a universe. Moving mountains is nothing compared with that. So it appears at first glance that to believe such power about yourself is arrogant, but that is not the real reason you do not believe it. You prefer to believe that your thoughts cannot exert real influence, because you are actually afraid of them. This may allay awareness of the guilt, but the cost of perceiving the mind is impotent. If you believe that what you think is ineffectual, you may cease to be afraid of it, but you are hardly likely to respect it. There are no idle thoughts. All thinking produces form at some level. There are no idle thoughts. All thinking produces form at some level. So what Jesus is saying is our thoughts are powerful. Instead of depreciating the importance of them, we need to respect and appreciate the importance of our thoughts and control them, discipline our minds. Become aware of fear thoughts, just anything negative, and be able to let it go. Accept the atonement, the oneness by doing that. Restore our minds to love by letting go of fear. It's a very, very simple equation. It's not complex. It's not actually even particularly difficult. It just requires some awareness and discipline, some mind training, which is what we're doing now. So that brings us to the end of this section of the text. Just to close this meditation, take a couple of minutes and just breathe, relax. Watch your breath and sink in. Let the breath just guide you to a deeper state, sinking into the light. To the oneness that this lesson is pointing to, beyond fear, a state of grace, which we'll talk about in the discussion sessions shortly. For now, just breathe, relax, step back, watch your breath. Sink in. It's going deeper and deeper with each breath into this lovely, peaceful, calm, relaxed state of mind. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about for the next couple of minutes. Just breathe, relax, be still, be silent. Sink into this place of state of grace beyond fear for the next 2 minutes of deep silence. Don't have any thoughts arise which seem to disturb your peace. Just notice them, these fear thoughts, become aware of them. Recognize that they're simply a lack of love. Be willing to let them go as you exhale, just dropping them away. The breath, restoring your mind to peace, into a state of grace. Blow them away like dark clouds, the wind of your breath. As you turn your attention to the eternal sky beyond. for another minute of silence. And so just gently bring your awareness back into your body, into the world through the senses. On the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So breathing in, notice the stomach rise, the chest rise, the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Clench the sphincter muscle, notice that contraction, the energy rising up the spine into your heart center. You can put one hand on your heart, just drawing it into the crown of your head. Pause at the top of the inhale. And just going to practice today's workbook lesson. I see only the past. Just bring that to mind. I see only the past. This idea might be particularly difficult to believe at first. It is the rationale for all of the preceding ones. It's the reason why nothing that you see means anything. It's the reason why you've given everything you see all the meaning that it has for you. It's the reason why you don't understand anything you see. It's the reason why your thoughts do not mean anything, and why they are like the things you see. It's the reason why you're never upset for the reason you think. It's the reason why you're upset because you see something that is not there. So, just as you exhale, blow it all out. Sense of letting go. Fear, which is of the future, is associated with the past because we fear based on our past experience of life and we project that into the future. So just dropping all of that, noticing the subtle sensations of the breath, the air flowing out of your nostrils, the chest and the stomach, sucking back in, the energy subsiding back down to the front channel of your body, coming to rest in the gap between breaths, noticing the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, the feet touching the ground. And now breathe in again. Notice maybe there's a subtle smell in your nose, a taste in your mouth. Notice what you're hearing. Just tuning into the subtle sounds without any judgment. There's no attempt to name or judge or label any of the sounds. There's no attempt to resist them. Just notice them, allow them to arise, to subside if they subside, come and they go, shift and they change. But when you pay attention in this way, you're starting to pay attention to the ground of being. eternal present moment, beyond past and future, beyond fear and doubt. Training your mind to stay rooted in that. So old ideas about time are very difficult to change because everything you believe is rooted in time. Depends on your not learning these new ideas about it. Ego is highly resistant to the idea that there is no time. Time is its domain. Time is where the ego plays. It's the ego's playground. Yet that is precisely why you need new ideas about time. This first time idea is not really so strange as it may sound at first. I see only the past. So open your eyes and just look around and do a little practice. So look at whatever you can see. If you've got a cup near you, look at a cup, for example. If you don't have a cup, look at something else. Ask yourself, do I really see this? Do I really see this cup? Or am I merely reviewing my past experiences of the cup? Picking up a cup, of being thirsty, of drinking from a cup, feeling the rim of a cup against your lips, having breakfast, and so on. Are not your aesthetic reactions to the cup too based on your past experiences? How else would you know whether or not this kind of cup will break if you drop it? What do you know about this cup, this object, except what you learned in the past? Truth is, you would have no idea what the cup is except for your past learning. Do you then really see it? So look about you now and just acknowledge that this is equally true of whatever you look at. By applying the idea for today indiscriminately to whatever catches your eye. So, for example, I see only the past in this pencil. There's a pencil there, pen. I see only the past in this shoe. Look down at your shoes. You're wearing shoes. I see only the past in this hand. I see only the past in that body. I see only the past in that face. Just do that for half a dozen objects, just randomly. Whatever you happen to look at is a good subject. So don't linger over any one thing in particular. But remember to omit nothing specifically. Just glance briefly at each subject. Say, I see only the past in this, whatever it is, and then move on to the next. And notice how you feel now. Hopefully quite peaceful, quite calm, detached, very much in the present moment, which is the idea of the exercise. In fact, all these exercises, as he says, this exercise is the summary of all the previous ones. It's the reason why we see only, we see nothing as it is now. We see nothing. Nothing that I see means anything. Reason why you do not understand anything you see. It's the reason why you've given everything you see all the meaning it has for you. It's all based on the past. Meaning is based on your past experience. So what Jesus is trying to make us aware of is, do we really see anything? It's all based on past experience. Thoughts, really. The past influences the present, which creates the future in the same likeness. And that's how the ego wants to keep us in this construct of time and space. Keeping us away from the present moment, which is the only place where true change can happen. We can only change our mind in the present. The past binds us, the present sets us free. So, I hope you enjoyed that session, meditation. We'll move into a discussion session now. So, any questions on that text? Any questions on the lesson? First of all, any questions on the text? See if Karen's still there. Karen, are you still there?
I am, yes.
Great. Yeah, so Well, let's just do a check-in if you want first. Anything arising for you? Any thoughts arising? Any emotions? And then maybe that will lead into some discussion.
So sort of coming back from the med, so you're welcome to go if you want, and I'll go next if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, feeling pretty good at the moment. I'm working quite hard, but I'm kind of in flow. Just being present, being in the moment. Got lots of things going on. I've got a visa that is in process, but I'm not really thinking about it. Well, right now, this is what I'm doing right now, day by day. I'm enjoying running this course. Got a lot of things going on in another business, which could be exciting, but I'm just sort of not really excited. I'm just, there's equanimity. I'm feeling fairly peaceful. Like, oh, if this happens. So I think I'm learning. In the past, oh, this could happen, and then you go on a whole future trip of, well, if this happens, then this and this, and that could be really brilliant. And I'm learning not to do that anymore. Okay, it's an opportunity. It could happen, or it could not happen. I don't know. So I will just be in the moment. I'll prepare for it as best I can. I'll flow with it, and the outcome will look after itself. It's not meant to happen. It won't happen. If it does happen, then it happens. And I'm pretty detached about the outcome. So it's quite a good space to be in. Yeah, I think that's me.
Should I go, Jono?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, this is an interesting one, fear and conflict. We've had quite a lot of conflict and also quite a lot of fear lately, and we're trying to look at things and realize where they're from. And I'm in a much better space today than I was yesterday. Just realizing that there's no real reason to fear going out and promoting my new product because it's actually doing good for people. No fear actually facing the people that I face, because I just need to be authentic and just believe and trust in what I'm doing. Very profound. I read it all this morning, and so I'm grateful to be here and to learn. That's me.
Great. It's a very good insight. I think if you really look at where fear comes from, it always comes from a personal self, doesn't it? So, yes. What will people think? Will I be exposed? Will I be embarrassed? Somehow we feel that something can threaten us, this personal identity. And when you get over that, there's that saying, it's a cliche, but it's true, get over yourself. If you can get over yourself, this little self, then it can just flow. You're like, I'm not really self-invested in this. So I'm doing it. And you can actually do it very well and, be in the flow and be in the moment, but you're not really invested in it. It's a paradox, isn't it? It's a lot of people, especially business owners, they invest themselves in the business. And then the problem with that is the business becomes them. There's a real self-identification that goes on there. And then the business has the power to hurt them. Because the business isn't doing well, then they're not doing well. They take it very personally. And business is doing great, I feel great. And so it's a roller coaster ride. Business is going well, I'm up. Business is going badly, I'm down. And that can change on a daily basis. Because you know what it's like. One day maybe not so good, you had some challenges, So if you're already identified with that, then you can get all down. If you have a great day, then it's like, wow, this is amazing, business is great. And actually what you want is that state of equanimity I talked about. It's like, yeah, I'm okay, irrespective of what happens in my business. And so I'm stable. I'm not overly excited. That's, people say, but then you can't feel any passion, you can't get excited. Maybe, but the downside of passion and excitement is disappointment, isn't it? Because the two go hand in hand. The more passion and excited you get about something, the more expectation there's there, the more desire you feel. And as Buddha said, desire is the source of all suffering. And then when things don't go your way, which inevitably they won't always, you're going to feel disappointed. And the greater your expectation, this excitement, usually anticipation of what's to come, the more the disappointment of, I've been disappointed again. It hasn't happened like I thought it would. So being able to do this, to manage your emotional, mental state, to stay in that state of equanimity, being in flow, really, not being overexcited, but not being overly disappointed. It's like, okay, well, that's the way it happened. I did my best, and the outcome will be what it will be. If you've really done your best, and you've really got into that right state of mind, then you just trust that the process will create whatever the outcome that's necessary. And you're not necessarily in control of that. Maybe that means your business doesn't do well because you need to learn some lessons. Who knows? So it's a very different way of doing anything, particularly a business, without attachment and without the desire and the fear, because desire and fear go hand in hand. The more you expect something to happen, the more you fear it won't happen. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
So it's a great insight that the Buddha had, 2,500 years ago. He said, well, desire is the source of all suffering. As you desire, you invite all this negativity into your life. Now that doesn't mean you do nothing, but you can do it in a state of non-expectation, which is interesting because you sort of, yes, you're still building something for the future. Apparently, your business is gonna grow and prosper and hopefully develop, and that's kind of the natural cycle. But if you remove your own attachment to it, if you remove your desire for that to happen, then you also remove the fear that it won't happen. And then you can just go, okay, well, this is what I'm doing. I'm being present, I'm in the now, and I'm actually learning the lessons I need to learn through this process. So, you're going out and you're promoting your product, you're facing a fear, you overcome it, and that's the lesson. It's not really about, how much product you sell, how successful you are on the level of form. The real success is internal, isn't it? It's like, okay, have I learned to overcome my fear? And just be in that flow state. That's why I said to you, I think it was last year, I said, entrepreneurship is a spiritual path. And you went, really? Why? And it's because it makes you confront your fear. You must confront your fear if you're going to do this, because it's not certain, it's risky. There's all this uncertainty. It's not a safe, secure job where you've got, if there is such a thing. I'm not sure that exists anymore. Anyway, but it seems to be safer and more secure because every month you're going to get your salary. So it's like, well, it doesn't matter what I do, the salary's there. But with entrepreneurship, it's like, well, no, it is very much dependent on my performance, on what I do, and the results that I get in a month determine my income. So you gotta really be comfortable with confronting this fear of the unknown, and being able to work within that environment. And I'd say that's the biggest distinguishing feature of an entrepreneur, is they know how to deal with fear. They're comfortable. Well, I don't think anyone's entirely comfortable with it, but they get good at, they get used to pushing into fear and then overcoming it. So it's about getting good at that process, and then you systematically start overcoming your fear. Okay, the more you face something, you overcome it. Okay, I'm not really scared of that because I faced it. So then you go to the next level. It's like, okay, well, now I'm pushing into fear again. Okay, but I can do the same thing. I can overcome it. And if you keep doing that, eventually there's no fear left. You're undoing your fear, which then that's a spiritual path. The whole spiritual path is about the undoing of fear. If entrepreneurship helps you to do that, then it's a spiritual path, which is a very different way of looking at it. Most people wouldn't think of, I'm starting a business because I'm going on a spiritual path. But that is actually, if you see it truly, that's what it is. And then the results will look after themselves. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be wildly successful at every business. Sometimes you won't. Sometimes you've got to learn lessons. And that's part of the path. But if you know that you're on your path to the ultimate goal, which is the overcoming of fear and enlightenment, then it doesn't really matter. It's like, okay, the business is just a vehicle for that. So if it's not going so well right now, well, obviously that's my lesson, and that's fine. That's cool. Bring it on, and if it's going really well, I can enjoy that as well. It's great, and I can be grateful for the miracles that are unfolding and so on.
So, I mean, that's really interesting listening to it from that perspective, because, I mean, just a few days ago, I was expecting to be paid a salary this year, and I was told, no, it's not happening. The business can't afford it. And then, of course, ego kicks in, and it's not, I've said to you before, it's not about the money for me. At the end of the day, I had set aside some savings for last year. They've been used up last year. And my request was something to cover my basic expenses. And I think that it's fair energetically that one shareholder working in the business earns what the other shareholder is, and that's agreed. And then it was just a big fat no. And then I was like, well, I have a right mind to go, and I didn't say this to my business partner, but I thought to myself, I have a right mind to go and type up my CV and go out and get a job that pays me. And as I've been thinking about it this weekend, and I was like thinking of the things that I didn't necessarily want to do, thought I couldn't do, was scared of doing. I mean, yesterday I went and set up a promo on my own, and then I had a friend help me at one, and my business partner helped me at another. And other things that I said, this is so much hard work. I actually forced to do one cold call, pure cold call, never even been on the same floor as this aesthetic skin clinic. Walked in, bumped into the owner last week, and he immediately said he wanted 3 products. I thought to myself, okay, I'm going off on a road trip this week. There are a few meetings set up, but not to justify a 5-hour journey each way. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just stay another night. I've been prospecting this morning. I've prospected 20 other clients to go see. Cold calls, all of them. Don't know anybody from a bar of soap. Never thought I'd see that happen. And I said to you about the video thing. If you asked me this time last week if I think I'll be doing videos, I'll tell you no. So this morning I did my first video. Okay, I wasn't in it, but I did my first video. And I don't know how to get it small enough to put onto the internet. It's 110 megabytes, but it's done. So, I mean, those are huge fears of mine, and they might sound trivial to some, but it's a fear that I have, and I've just got to break through it and keep on, as you say, push into fear, systematically overcome it.
Exactly. You just do it. I started a few years ago. I started a card payment business, which is really unglamorous. It's simply like you've got to go cold call and knock on doors. That's how. Well, now that wouldn't work with COVID, but then that was the modus operandi. It'd be like, okay, get into the high street. There's a whole bunch of businesses in the UK, and walk in and then introduce yourself and say, look, this is what I can do for you. And the reason I did it was, well, number one, I needed an income, but actually the primary reason that I did that and didn't do something else was like actually there was some fear. I hadn't done that before. I've done lots of cold calling on, phones and stuff, but actually walking in and you're really exposing yourself, aren't you? And you could respect it. People can say, just bugger off, which did happen, I have to say. But once you've dealt with it, it's like, so what? So they said, leave. Who cares? I don't know them. I know them from a bar of soap. They'll probably never see me again. Move on to the next one.
Yeah.
And once you've done it for a bit, you're like, actually, I'm not really scared. I'll walk into any shop and I'll start chatting, and mostly people are pretty open. If you're presentable and you know how to kind of speak and chat, then mostly people will be open. And if they're not, then you go, okay, well, no hard feelings then. Try the next job. I remember my first time I went to a town called Salisbury. It's actually a city. And so the first shop I walk into, it's this old codger, and he listens to me for about 5 minutes and eventually goes, "Get out of my shop." I'm like, okay, that didn't go so well. So I'm like, okay, take a deep breath, move on to the next one. And the next one I did was a pub, and I walk in, and the guys are, "Oh, actually, you from Payment Sense? I wanted to call them. That's great. Sit down. I'm interested." And I got the deal. So you just like you just don't know, It's you just gotta kind of keep on keeping on, and don't let the fear get you down, because what one person thinks or says is totally independent of what someone else thinks or says. The next one, someone might be really interested.
And
and you learn to become independent of what other people say. Like, who cares? So the old codger told me to get out, but that's just his, he's not open to it. So, okay, just move on. Don't take it personally and move on. So it teaches you not to take it personally.
Yeah, and that's very true. Just yesterday, my business partner was saying, it's really hard when somebody just walks away, because the one lady walked away and picked up another competitor's product, which we know is not as good and effective as ours. And so then we went and quickly just turned the corner, and that lady had put our product down. And she said, "Oh, that's so disappointing." And I said, "Well, it is, but what we don't know is who is the next person that is going to walk past here. Who is that person, and why would they need our products? And how could we change their lives?" And as soon as we said it, the very next person that she walked up to is an owner of a gym, and he's been looking for something to help his people with muscle recovery. And the very next person that I walked up to was the owner of a mental health institute, and obviously with cortisol reduction. And we just looked at each other and thought, wow, here we could reach out to many more people. So you get that little knock, and I think you just dust yourself off and move on, even if it is disappointing and scary.
Yeah, it's not to be attached to the outcome. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to do what I do, and someone might accept it or reject it, and that's okay. It doesn't really matter, whichever way it goes, because I know that if I keep doing that there are going to be people who want this. I know that what I'm doing has value. I think you need to fundamentally believe in what you're doing. Otherwise, you're just a con artist. But if you have that belief, then it's just like, well, I believe in what I'm doing, and so I'll keep doing it. And there are going to be people who resonate with it, and there are going to be people who don't. It's just inevitable. That's how the world works. Not everyone is going to love your product, even if you have the best product in the industry and the best product ever. It's like there's still going to be people who go, no, that's not for me, for whatever reason. So it's really a practice in overcoming fear and in this detachment, being like, I'm okay, whether the person buys it or not. And actually, paradoxically, you make more sales when you're not attached. It's funny. The more you desire something, if there's that kind of desperation energy, and someone picks that up, because everyone subconsciously is picking up on your energy. If they pick that up and they go, actually, this person's desperate, there's a natural tendency for a person to back away and go, no, you know what, I don't know why. They wouldn't necessarily consciously go, they just go, no, I'll think about it or another time or whatever. They'll use some excuse not to buy it because they don't resonate with the energy.
Absolutely.
And so it's about, yes, you've got this seeming paradox between the spiritual path of like, this is all about the flow, and it's about, being in the right state of mind. And then on the other hand, I need a salary, I need to earn an income. There's this like need to do that because, I've got to pay bills and so on and so on. But if you allow the second, the latter, the bill paying and the money to dominate, then you actually sabotage what's going to really drive your success and the success of the business. Because it's not that, I need to pay bills and I'm desperate to make money. And, we know, I mean, you probably had experience with salespeople. If they're money oriented and you can just see this person just wants to get my cash, then it's an immediate turn off. You just kind of go, no, this isn't for me. It doesn't feel right. So it's managing that seeming conflict, going, okay, I'm just going to be, the principle is I'm going to be in the flow. I'm going to be out of, I'm going to be fearless. I'm going to be in a state of flow. I'm going to allow my actions to be, in that flowing state, and let the result take care of itself, because that's, and that's exactly what this section is really about. Controlling your thought, and the thought leads to the action. You're trying to control your action, and go, okay, well, I'm feeling fearful, but I'll just try and fake it, and I'm not really gonna release that fear. Then there's an inevitable sense of strain. You're not going to be very effective at what you're doing, because that underlying fear and tension will come through in your behavior. So I think, as I said to you, Course in Miracles is great business training. If you start to master these principles, you're like, actually, this is the way that you'll be more successful in business, in life, just by learning and applying these pretty simple principles. I mean, it's not rocket science, but it's just having the awareness to go, okay, it doesn't matter what happens. I'm going to stay true to these principles, and I'm going to stay in the flow, therefore, and allow the outcome to look after itself. Any more questions about this?
No, not from me. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. It's a particularly good section. And then Workbook Lesson 7. It's worth looking at this. I mean, he's saying this is a major lesson, so it's a bit like Lesson 5 on I'm never upset for the reason I think. I see only the past. Saying this explains all preceding ideas. So all of the previous 6 lessons are explained by, I see only the past. So take your situation. You're feeling nervous about doing a video or about doing a cold call. Why? Well, it's past-based, isn't it? There's some past experience that's given you an idea of like, oh, actually this is somehow threatening or dangerous. And you simply need to drop. If there was no past, if you had no past reference point, you just go, well, why not? Just speak to the person. And you see that in children. They're like, often those fears aren't there. So it's like, whatever, I'll just go up and I'll speak to a random stranger, because there's not any fear of rejection. It's only once, those experiences start to come and they've been rejected a few times, then they go, oh, hang on. Now I'm not so sure about approaching a stranger because I've got this past reference of being rejected and it was painful. But if that's not there, then if you drop the past, then it's just right now I'm absolutely present and I'm not carrying the past with me. So I'll just be completely present, completely fearless. And if you do that, you're in a state of flow, and you're going to be fully engaged in what you're doing, in that conversation with the person. You're fully engaged, you're giving them your 100% attention, then they will feel like, wow, this person really cares. There's a connection here. And that's actually what they're buying. The product is secondary. They're buying your energy. So this is also a pretty profound lesson. You can just drop the past in every interaction and come fully into the present without any of those past beliefs and thoughts. And it takes a lot of mind training, because those are, they're not conscious, they're subconscious. But as they come up, it's to notice them and go, okay, I can let this go. This is just based on the past. It's not really rational. It's the past fear, past experiences leading to the fear. Now I can just let it go, drop it all, and find a state of peace. And peace in the moment, peace in the present moment is flow. Even when I'm operating in the world, it's meditation sets you up nicely for it. Any questions about this lesson?
No.
Okay. So I thought we'd move on to Descent into Hell. Quite a dramatic title. You can also call it The Fall from Grace. It's on page 19 of your manual, but you should be able to see it. Can you see it on the screen?
Yes, I can.
Great.
Thank you.
So this is a high-level overview of what the Course in Miracles teaches. It's the foundation for forgiveness or for letting go. It's the reason why all these practices work. So it's pretty important to understand it, because it's a theoretical underpinning of all of this. And actually, whenever you're letting go, you're applying this teaching, saying, I believe in this theory. It is a theory, but it's the only theory that, to me, makes any kind of sense. It doesn't. That actually explains how and why we arrived here. Why do we exist as humans? Apparently, why is there a world? Why are we here? These are the ultimate questions. Who am I and why am I here? It's the ultimate spiritual, philosophical question. So, what I love about the Course is it answers it pretty clearly. It's not saying, oh, well, we can't ever really know. I've heard some spiritual teachers say, oh, well, you can never really know why the universe was created. And the Course is not saying that. Saying, no, you can absolutely know. In fact, you must know, because that then gives you the purpose of everything. If you're confused about that, then you're confused about everything. So it's going back to first principles, saying, okay, so let's understand why this was created. Why is there apparently separation? Why is there a world or a universe at all? So Jesus explained, he said, actually, ultimately, there's only this perfect oneness. You can call that by different names. You could call it God. You could call it love. You could call it oneness. You could call it beingness. Allah, the Atonement, the Brahman in the East. There's many names for it. It's actually ultimately beyond names, beyond any language. It's the nameless, ineffable presence that sits behind everything. This is true reality. This is what is unshakable, unchangeable, eternal, infinite. And he's saying that still exists. It hasn't gone away. It's still true. It's still true reality. At some point, a very long time ago, there was a thought of separation arose. And this is, a lot of people go, but if there's only perfect oneness, then how could the thought of separation even be? Well, that's exactly the point, is saying, well, it couldn't really be, right? The thought of separation was and still is an illusion. It's not true. It's a false idea. It's a false thought. The problem came in that the mind that thought that thought then wanted to believe it. So if we just simply gone, well, that's just a ridiculous thought. There's nothing other than perfect oneness. We ought to just let that thought go and return to perfect oneness. And none of what subsequently seemed to happen would have happened. But because we believed in it, that was the first split in the mind. So the tiny mad idea of separation, as Jesus called it, was a temptation. Like, oh, okay, well, what if I could be separate from this oneness? Maybe then I could have my own identity. And this is where desire was born, really. Yeah, maybe I could have something different, a different experience. I could have my own identity. I could have my own mind. I could think for myself. Oh, that's kind of interesting. And in this idea is the ego. The ego is simply the idea that I am some kind of separate self. I have a separate will. I can decide for myself. I can choose for myself. And this was very seductive. The mind was like having experienced only oneness, like, this could be kind of interesting. And so the ego, which means I am in Latin, so it's simply a sense of a separate self, a separate identity. It's also been called the universal mind in the Gnostic tradition. They call it universal mind. It's been called Satan. It's been called the devil. Again, there are many names for it, just like there are many names for God. It's a thought of separation. It's a thought that you have some kind of separate identity. So that's the first major split. Once you go, actually, I am a separate self. You've now separated from perfect oneness. You've created a separate identity. And the result of that is this idea of individuality. Right? So I'm in division, right? Relies on division, relies on a split, a separation. And I'm in duality, right? I'm in not one mind now, but I'm in two minds. So I'm in a split, in a split two minds, which is not a very happy state to be in. The ego is trying to convince you it is. But underlying all individuality, there's still oneness. There's still a thought that, well, maybe none of this is really true. And you can never really undo that awareness, fortunately. That awareness is simply called the Holy Spirit by the Course. So again, it's called by many names in different traditions. You could call it your soul, you could call it your intuition, your higher self, your Buddha nature, your Christ self. Again, it's words, terminology. Doesn't matter what you call it, but there's some awareness in your mind that actually there's still that God or love or oneness is still true. Even though on the surface level of your mind, this individual identity is playing out. And underpinning individuality is separate identity named, which is an acronym for SIM. So as soon as I name it, as soon as I give myself an identity, I say, I am this. Right? I am a separate self. I now have a name. We've given ourselves names. We seem to exist in bodies. We seem to have separate lives, separate ideas, ideologies, beliefs, values, desires, fears, problems, relationships, etc., etc. All of that makes this separate identity real, and it names it. Right. So what do we identify with? Well, if we identify with our personal interests, our personal self, and all of its fears, wants, desires, problems, expectations, and so on, then we have really named this identity. We've given it a name, we've made it real. And what that leads to is a tremendous sense of guilt. Because underlying all of this, there's the guilt at having seemingly separated from oneness, at having denied oneness. Gone, actually, I don't want oneness anymore. I don't want love. And actually, I've had to destroy love in my mind. I've had to obliterate that from my awareness in order to believe in an individual identity. And so underpinning individuality is guilt. And its twin sister, which is sin. So I think I've really done something terrible. I've destroyed this ultimate infinite love. I've destroyed what's really good and true and pure and holy. And now I suffer the guilt for it. I feel this tremendous guilt of what I think I've done for destroying this perfect love, perfect oneness, God, none of which is true, because the first idea wasn't true. So none of this, once you go into falsehood, none of it is true. But the ego believes it's true, and that's the problem. So it's a problem of false belief and identifying with that false belief. And so the guilt then arises. Guilt and sin demand punishment. We now fear, it's a false expectation of punishment appearing real. We now fear that somehow we'll be punished for this terrible sin that we've committed, which isn't true. But if you believe it's true, then fear must be true too. And that's the source of all fear. Fear arises because of this deep metaphysical guilt at what we think we've done. And it's an inevitable consequence. Guilt, sin, and fear go hand in hand. If you feel guilty you feel like you've sinned, then you'll feel guilty. Guilt demands punishment, so you will fear that punishment. And you will fear the punishment of a fearful, wrathful, separate God. So we see this in the Old Testament of the Bible and in other myths and religions. Some kind of fearful, wrathful, vengeful God that's separate from us, that is now going to punish us for our sins, because we've been very bad little humans, and this seemingly all-powerful God is going to punish us with various forms of disaster and ultimately death. So death comes. The fear of death comes from all of this, right? If we think we've destroyed God, we've destroyed love, then that's where death arises, right? The thought of destruction, of death. And if we think that that's true, then we must die at some point too. So all fear then is the fear of our own destruction, because the ego is ultimately not real. So what it fears is that it will be destroyed by oneness, and that fear plays out in all of our interactions, and that fear ultimately is behind the whole idea of death. Without fear, there can be no death. Guilt, sin, fear, and death. It's one thought system. And can you see how this all kind of fits together? Karen, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Does it make sense? Can you see the logic of the ego, of what's happening here?
Absolutely. Sounds crazy when you look at it like that, but I can see it.
But it is crazy but you have to kind of really go into it and analyze it and look at it and go, okay, actually, when you look at it like this, clearly, it doesn't really make any sense. It's insane. But it has a logic. Once you enter into the domain of the ego, once you do that first separation and you believe in that, now the logic becomes inevitable, doesn't it? You have to do this. There's no other way. This is the logical outcome of believing in separation.
Absolutely.
Which is kind of why this reality we've constructed here doesn't work, because it can't work. Jesus is saying, look, it doesn't matter how hard you try to make the idea of separation work, to make the ego work. It's not going to work for these reasons, because it's based on what's false. It's based on these really dysfunctional, destructive beliefs and guilt, sin, fear, attack. That's the underpinning of it. So this is all happening in the mind to start with. And when this all kicked off, however many billion years ago, it all happened in the mind. But as Jesus says, all thought creates form at some level. So when all this is going on in the mind, and these are powerful thoughts and emotions. The mind is powerful. If you really believe in all of this, this is a pretty horrifying predicament now to be in. I now feel like I've destroyed love or oneness. I now feel terribly guilty and sinful for what I've done. I now fear that I'm going to be punished by God. So the ego comes up with a plan. It says, well, if this is all true, which it isn't, but it's convincing you it is, then what you need to do is run away. You need to run away from this terrible, fearful, vengeful God, which you've imagined, and you need to run into a separate place. It says, I'll create a home for you. I'll create a place where you can be separate, you can have your own identity, and where you'll be apart from God. God can't get you there. We'll create a safe place for you. And so it projects this guilt and this fear outwards. And that is what was known as the Big Bang. In science, cosmology, in the sort of 60s, people like Stephen Hawking came up with this idea, and they seem to prove it. There's a lot of evidence that the universe came from one massive explosion. There was one singular point from which it all arose. It exploded into some kind of existence, this big bang of energy, and it's been expanding ever since and separating ever since. We've now got multiple galaxies and stars and planets and solar systems, and we find ourselves living on one of these planets in a little galaxy called the Milky Way, and no one really can figure out why. So the cosmologists, the scientists can say, well, how? Okay, so this is how the universe happened and expanded, but they can't really tell you why, because that's a philosophical question. It actually goes beyond time and space entirely. So it makes a lot of scientists very nervous when you start saying, well, why did all this happen? Because then you have to go into the mind and you have to start understanding all of this, which is philosophy. It's the domain of the philosopher rather than of the scientist, which then takes away their seeming power. I think Stephen Hawking was quoted as saying, well, God is not necessary for the creation of the universe, which is exactly true. No, actually, the universe was created as a thought that was opposite from God. But if you go beyond that and you go, okay, but then what existed before the universe? Now you have to look beyond the whole construct of science. You have to look at something that is beyond all of those laws, which in which the laws of physics just disappear. Hence, Gary Renard's great title, The Disappearance of the Universe. Ultimately, in perfect love, all of this disappears, and there's no need for it. It doesn't really exist. So now we've done this. We've projected all of this out. We've somehow, our minds have figured out how to create form, something apparently outside of the mind, right? This is what projection means. We projected our thoughts outward. So all energy is, most science won't be able to explain to you what energy is. They'll say, what's the base matter of the universe? But what is it really? What created it? Well, it's projected thought. It's projected by the mind outwards. And now we're living in this quantum soup of energy, which is just projected thought, which is kind of why these principles work, because everything is still thought. So if I'm thinking, it creates form on some level, because the thought and the energetic projection of it, which we see external to us, are not really separate. It's what Jesus is trying to teach us. Our thoughts and the universe that we seem to have created are not separate. The ego is trying to tell you they are, but they are not. And so there's this further fragmentation. Once we've done this, we have further fragmentation of the ego, mind, and now the ego separates into multiple, millions and millions, trillions and trillions of little bits, little parts, separate forms of matter and energy populating the universe. So various plants on this planet, we have plants, we have animals, we have rocks, we have animate objects, we have inanimate objects, we have human beings. And all of this has evolved over billions of years. It's taken a very, very long time to evolve all of this into increasingly complex and seemingly sophisticated separate forms of life, right? Each of these creatures has its own genetic blueprint. It has its own systems that support its life here. It has different ways of doing things. The whole thing's based on this idea of separation, everything for itself. And we live in a world where these things often live in conflict with each other. So in order for us to live and to survive, we seem to have to consume and eat other things. We have to eat animals, plants, in order to live. Even if you're vegan, you go, okay, I'm just going to eat plants. You're still destroying the plant. The plant must die in order for you to live. Because that's the ego's thought system, the one or the other, right? In order to have my life, my separate identity, I must deny God. God cannot exist for me to exist. And vice versa, right? If God exists, if love exists, perfect oneness, then the ego cannot exist. These are mutually exclusive and irreconcilable thought systems, identities, ideas. So the ego just plays that out, right? One or the other. So in order for me to exist as a apparently separate human being, I must consume other forms of life. They must be sacrificed so that I can have life. That's how the world works. If you really look at it. Survival of the fittest. Nature is not very pretty when you really look at it. It's pretty brutal. One thing consumes another. things are continuously dying, and then they change energy. So even if something dies, it will transform into something else, and it'll be used by something else and will be consumed. So animals die, plants then feed off their energy, but they fed off the plants. Everything's feeding off everything else, and everything identifies with the form that they're in. So especially human beings, but even animals. People say they're egoless. Well, no, they're not egoless. They still identify with their form. They still have these survival instincts, reproducing instincts, to survive as a seemingly independent entity, whether it's a dog or a rabbit or a cow or whatever it is, or a plant. Has this will to survive, to continue living in its form and to reproduce itself. But human beings, we've taken this identification of our form to another level entirely, because we've now got names. We've given ourselves names. We have all these separate interests. We have all these ideologies and beliefs. We have separate values. We desire separate things. We've created a whole construct to support the separate self. And that's the world we live in. The world of separation, the world of duality. And we've made it incredibly complex and sophisticated. Our ego minds have created everything that we see in this world. And yet something's missing in it, isn't it? We still feel like somehow bereft, feel somehow abandoned, that we're dealing with quite a hostile world. Things don't really go our way a lot of the time. We're dealing with these forces of accusation, blame, complaint, attack. Other humans seem to be able to accuse us, blame us, attack us. And what the ego very cunningly does here, this is important to just look at, is that it seemingly helps us to let go of our guilt, underlying metaphysical guilt, by projecting it out and onto other people or things. So instead of me being the guilty one who God is going to come and destroy, I now think that you're the guilty one. So I'm off the hook because you're guilty, and God is gonna enact His vengeance on you. To try and so all we're really doing is we're trying to get rid of the subconscious guilt by projecting it outwards, by projecting onto other people normally, or other things. We think we're going to get rid of it. Oh, you're the guilty. So that's why we spend so much time accusing, blaming, and complaining, because that projects our guilt outwards. It makes us feel temporarily better. I'm off the hook. I'm not the guilty one. You're the guilty. God's going to get you instead of me. Again, one or the other. And temporarily, we might feel better when we do that. When we attack another, we're just projecting our guilt at them. Temporarily, we might feel better. But the problem is that the more we do that, the more we actually increase our own guilt and fear of attack. And the more we increase the guilt and the fear, the more we feel the need to project it, because that's the ego's solution to this. Now you're going to project it. So you're going to accuse and blame and complain. And the more you do that, the more you're going to invite other people to attack you, because they're going to be doing the same thing. They're going to be trying to offload their guilt onto you. And if ever you've gone into a blame type conversation, someone gets defensive and often they counterattack. They go, oh, it's not me, it's you. You're the one to blame because of this. And now it becomes the blame game. Accusation, blame, complaint. And it's not a very happy existence at all. In fact, it's hell, which is what the ego's put us in, right? A helpless, innovated little life. That's what hell is. We feel like we're helpless. We've denied our true power, which is the power of love, power of our true minds. We now feel innovated, weakened. We feel little. We feel lack. We feel scarcity. We feel threatened. We identify with this little self and this little life. And we're in a prison of our own making, of limitation, lack, scarcity, sacrifice, loneliness, There's a lot of suffering in this. And eventually, inevitably, we're going to die. Our bodies are going to die. Seemingly, our personal identity is going to die. It's going to be no more. And we try and get some kind of satisfaction from all of this. If you believe in all of this, then all you can do is go, well, I'll try and make my hell a bit better. I'll try and improve it. I'll try and make more money, or I'll try and find a special person to have a special relationship with, who's going to make me feel better about myself. If I do these things, maybe I'll feel a bit better about myself. And that's what the ego is addicted to, some kind of external salvation. Its answer is to say, go and seek externally to you, seek in the world, which keeps the whole idea of an external world going, for something that's gonna save you from this. And we've invented many things to do that. The chief ones are pleasure is one, power is another one, wealth is another one, fame, another one. So we go and we look for these things. We go, well, when I make more money, when I have fame, when I find the special relationship that's gonna fulfill me, my special separate partner who's just gonna be the two of us and we're gonna be happy together. It doesn't really work, does it? Although the ego is going to convince you it's going to work, to look outside of yourself. You're still playing the game as long as you're looking outside of yourself for some kind of salvation. You're still believing in an external world. If you believe in an external world, you must believe in separation. The guilt is inevitable. The fear is inevitable. The accusation, blame, and complaint and attack are inevitable. And you're still caught in this it's a closed loop. It's a closed thought system. Once you enter into this, you believe in the idea of separation, you're stuck in this. And so we get stuck in time and space. We get stuck living these human lives, trying to find some kind of meaning and purpose in what is meaningless and doesn't have a purpose. That's what Jesus is saying. Hence, nothing I see means anything. It's returning us to first principles and saying, look, none of this is meaningful at all. If you give it a meaning, then you make it all real. So it's an exclusive commitment. You can't have a little bit of separation, a little bit of the ego, and still be at one with God. The atonement is an exclusive commitment. You must commit exclusively to this and say, only this is true, only this is real. And I'm willing to relinquish all of this. I'm willing to let all of this go. Because it's all or nothing with this thought system. You're either going to accept this totally, accept the atonement totally, or you're going to be in separation. There's going to be thoughts and emotions in your mind that still identify with this thought system. And if you still identify with this, you still believe in it, in other words, in some way, then you're going to come back to it. You're going to come back over and over to repeat the same cycle, to come into a world as a human being or another form of life, to try and find a way to be happy here, to try and overcome all of the difficulties that this life presents. And as long as you believe that it's all real, you're not going to succeed. So then your body dies, but your mind cannot die. So if you still believe in all of this, guess what? You incarnate again. You come back again into another body and you repeat the cycle. You do the same thing again. You have another human life and you try and figure it out again. And if you keep trying to figure it out within the ego's domain, you're never going to do it. You're never going to master this. Trying to master fear is delusional. It's only the letting go of fear. True mastery comes through love. Right? It's the total letting go of all of this, and just finding that divine love, perfect oneness in your mind, and identifying only with that. So once you understand this, then the way out becomes pretty clear. So if I'm now the victim of the world, this is, by the way, the lowest self-concept the ego is capable of. I'm a victim. I've denied my true power. I feel like I'm a victim of this cruel world outside of me. I'm at the effect of the circumstances of the world. I've denied my true power. it's not a very happy situation to be in. So the turning point comes where you go, enough, enough of suffering. I'm done with this dream of limitation, lack, loneliness, suffering, scarcity, death, sickness. There must be a better way. And that's when the turning point happens. That's what happened for Bill and Helen Schuckman when they invited the Holy Spirit to come in, and that's how this whole Course in Miracles came into being. It was a turning point. They said, enough. Okay, enough is enough. We're tired of doing this because it's very exhausting. It's going nowhere. It's not gonna work. And a part of your mind knows that it's not gonna work. So it's all pretty futile and pointless and meaningless. And there's nothing more defeating, more disappointing than just trying to make what doesn't work. So it's a futile exercise. So at some point you go, okay, there must be another way, and I'm willing to find it. And then you might be exposed to a spiritual teaching like this, which starts to point you here, starts to point you out of the entire matrix, the entire illusion, back to oneness. And all true spiritual teachings do that. They point you to this place in your mind where you're still one, where you're still perfectly happy, peaceful, safe. You're connected to your source. You're one with this, and none of this exists. And so the game of life then becomes, well, how do you let go of all of these thoughts and feelings as they arise? None of them are true. Your only job becomes to become aware of them as they arise, and they will arise. The world is designed to trigger them. The projection is designed to trigger fear and guilt and sin and seemingly reinforce it. As I said, it's a closed system. So you projected it out. It now comes back to apparently hurt you and harm you, and you see it as real. And so it makes the guilt and the sin and the fear apparently real, which confirms your separate identity and the ego's in business. And that's the purpose of the world. But reinterpreted through the Holy Spirit, the world now becomes a place where you can learn to correct your mind, where you can learn to correct all these false ideas and beliefs and feelings and systematically undo them or let them go. So as they arise, you look at them, you go, this isn't really true, this isn't really real. I can let this go with the help of some of these practices, the letting go practices, the breath work, the meditations, the mind training. All of them are designed really just to help you to come to an awareness that, okay, I'm fearing here, I'm in this thought system, guilt, sin, fear, and attack. I don't want this, and then to make a choice to let it go. And that's really all the atonement is, all the Oneness is. An awareness of this thought system and a choice to let it go. And when you let it go, then all that's left is oneness, because is all that's left. There's nothing else. There's only two thought systems to choose from. If you let go of the false one, then what's true must reveal itself. So this is very much it's not about becoming something more. It's actually about letting go of what you are not. A good way of illustrating this, imagine a sculptor. So the sculptor cuts away what is not the statue to reveal the statue that was always there. So, and Michelangelo, in fact, probably the most famous sculptor in history, said that. And how did you sculpt the David? And he said, well, I just cut away what was not the David. I removed what was not the essence of David, and what was left was David, which is quite a good way of looking at it. So you just remove what is false, what is not you, the untrue, and what's left must be true. And when you come into an awareness of that truth, then everything your heart desires is there. Happiness, peace, love, joy. Not because of something in form, it just is because it is. Right? God is, and then we cease to speak, says Jesus at some point in the course. It just is. Happiness, peace, love, truth, these are given. They are eternal. They cannot be undone. They are your true nature. And your only job is to become aware of them by letting go of your awareness of what's false, of what's blocking these. So in the introduction, Jesus says this is not a course in teaching the meaning of love, because that is beyond what can be taught. But it is a course in helping you to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. So that's what this is all directed to. Remove the blocks, and what will reveal itself is love. It says, I can't teach you the meaning of love because that is beyond what can be taught. But I can make you aware of the blocks to the awareness of that presence and help you to undo them. So it's a pretty simple teaching, really, and it's the only one that really makes sense. And that's why it is simple. The truth is simple. And only the truth will cut through the complexity of this ego's thought system that has got us all entangled, really. We quantum entangled in our own thoughts, in a universe of time and space that ultimately isn't real. And our job then becomes, well, how do I disentangle myself and return to true reality? So I hope that makes some sense. Any questions on any of that? Anything you want to discuss?
No, that was great, Jono. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's worth, that's why I've included this, worth returning to this every now and then, just going, okay, remind myself why I'm letting go, why I'm doing forgiveness, why I'm doing these practices, because of this. Because if this is true, and I haven't found a better explanation, no, I haven't found any other explanation in any spiritual teaching, any religion that explains how and why we came into this apparent existence as human beings in the world and the universe we seem to live in, as clearly as this. It's the only thing that really makes any sense to me. Because I don't think there's another explanation. There's no other explanation. This is it. This is the truth. So if it is the truth, then we simply need to apply the remedy, as Jesus is saying. The remedy for the separation is the atonement. Just systematically correct your mind as you notice these thoughts and emotions coming up. And when they do come up, that's good. And if you consciously trigger them to come up, if you're doing things that push your buttons, then that's actually the quickest way. That's why, to return to the beginning of our conversation, that's why entrepreneurship is a great spiritual path, because you're consciously pushing into your fear, and you're consciously triggering all of these fears and the doubts, and underlying it, the guilt and the sin is coming up. Whenever you feel discomfort, you're giving yourself the opportunity to do this mind training more often than if you go, oh no, I'm gonna try and avoid the fear. I'm gonna try and make myself safe and secure and comfortable within the illusion, which is what most people do. But you're never going to be safe, secure, and comfortable within the illusion, because it's a dream, and it's a nightmare actually, and it's based on all of these false ideas. So by challenging yourself consciously, you're giving yourself more opportunities to do this mind training, to do the correction. You're giving yourself more forgiveness opportunities, basically, on a daily basis, by doing something like you're doing, where you're pushing into those fears, rather than going, no, I'll stay at home and I'll just avoid testing myself. I'll avoid the challenges, because I don't want to feel the fear. It's like, no, bring it on. It's that great scene in the Matrix I talked about. You're gonna, like Neo is gonna go, right, I'm willing to face you. His arch enemy is coming at him. He's attacking him. He's facing this ego. He's going, okay, I'm not scared anymore. Come, bring it on, because I have to face this fear and undo it in my mind. There's no other way. And sometimes that, the world is helpful in helping you to do that. That's the purpose of it, because it will bring about situations and circumstances and people and events will come into your life to exactly bring, it's a mirror, it brings up those fears for you so that you can face them and undo them. And that's the whole purpose. So it gives your life a higher meaning, although ultimately this is all meaningless. The meaning of it is to undo the ego and to climb back up the ladder and return to oneness. And now you have the only true purpose that your life has, and there is a meaning in that. And if you use your life for that, then you will find meaning and purpose in everything that you do. Even the apparently inexplicable, horrendous, horrific, awful things that happen, you go, well, the purpose of it is to atone, is to undo my my false ideas and return my mind to that. Now it kind of makes sense. So it becomes perfect in its imperfection, doesn't it? It's like, okay, it's an imperfect world, but instead of going, this is terrible and awful, and you're just in the victim mindset, you go, no, it's good, because this is showing me my own false thought system, and this is giving me an opportunity to correct it, to heal it, and to return my mind to oneness. And that's quite inspiring. I'm going somewhere where there's no pain, there's no suffering. I'm going to be free of all of this forever, for all eternity. If that doesn't make your heart sing a little bit, nothing will. But all of this can be undone. You can transcend all of this and let it all go. And that's the true meaning and purpose of your life and everyone's life. It's not, we all have the same purpose, irrespective of what people might believe within this construct. They still want oneness. Ultimately, they still want salvation, or atonement, or awakening, or enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. Again, many different names. But this process of that happening and returning to this ultimate, absolute truth is what we're all on the journey, as Jesus says. You cannot choose the curriculum. You can only choose the time you take it. It's up to you, when you want to learn your lessons. But ultimately, the curriculum is set because this is true and this is not, and you cannot alter truth through your beliefs. Fortunately, we think we think we've done all this, but actually the truth remains unchanged and unchangeable. Which is, this is the theoretical underpinning of the entire course and this whole practice of letting go of forgiveness that Jesus is recommending we try and master. So I guess that brings us to the end of the session, unless you've got any more questions. Anything else you want to chat about?
You've more than answered any that I might have had.
Okay. Well, it all comes out because it's a comprehensive theory. There's not any questions here that are left unanswered. It explains the whole thing. It's not always easy to accept. That's really the difficulty. It's like, okay, maybe intellectually, if you intellectually go, yeah, I get that makes sense. But then if the rubber meets the road in your daily life, when it's like, okay, so now I'm actually experiencing the fear, I'm experiencing guilt, I'm experiencing a sense of unworthiness or lack, I'm tempted to accuse, blame, complain, attack someone else. Now, and that's where the difficulty comes. Okay, I've got to be aware of it in the moment, and I've got to bring in an awareness of the atonement, all of this in a moment, and be able to let it go. And if you apply these little mind training exercises I'm sending you, and the breath breaks, then you're doing that. You're doing this process. You're incorporating all of this is incorporated into the idea that, okay, I can let go of the thoughts and the emotions that are causing me any kind of disturbance or distress. If I'm doing that, then I'm doing this process, and I don't have to consciously remind myself of all this theory. It's useful to have in the background, but just by letting go, by practicing forgiveness, as Jesus called it, or letting go, you're doing what you need to do within the construct, because it's not just theoretical exercise. So the text is designed to teach you all of it, to give you the theoretical underpinning for this practice of letting go. And the workbook is designed to help you to practice forgiveness or letting go moment by moment, day by day, in your daily life, in the matrix of this world that you're living in, apparently with the separation that's going on, and you're apparently a separate body. It's designed to help you to really apply this pretty high level thought system in a very practical way to your thoughts, your emotions, then your decisions, your actions are all going to be influenced. And that's the way you find your way out of this, back to oneness. And what happens here really doesn't actually matter ultimately. So whether your business succeeds or fails actually ultimately doesn't matter, because you're going back to oneness. You're leaving it all behind anyway. So if you see it from that perspective, then it's just like, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is my path to return my mind to oneness, and it's all perfect. It's it's all perfect learning for me. But I'm not going to get attached to the outcome, because ultimately all form will fail in the end. Your business will fail at some point. It will cease to exist at some point, whether that's in the next 2 years or the next 50 years. So then you can kind of be detached about it and just go, well, the only purpose of the business is to learn these lessons. And if it's fulfilling that purpose, then it's fulfilling the only purpose it already has. And I trust that, if it is doing that, that the outcomes are going to be helpful. They're going to help me to continue with this process, right? So yes, you need some material resources to help you to continue learning your lessons. Well, then those will come. And that's kind of how God provides. When you say leave it to God, it's not literally like, oh, this magic figure kind of goes woo boom. No, it's more just you're in this flow, you're in this kind of more abundant space of mind, and because it's all thought, you're dealing in the matrix of thought. That thought influences what happens, and the opportunities that you need to correct your mind, just they'll keep coming. And if you keep growing the business and you keep pushing into your comfort zone, then those opportunities will keep coming, because it's then another level of like, okay, so let's say in a year's time, suddenly, you're going to get a major international deal. Okay, well, that's another fear that you've got to overcome, and so on. And whatever the difficulties are, like the test now for you is, okay, I don't have a salary. I don't apparently have the material means, but do I trust this process? Am I willing to go, I'm going to trust this process, and I'm going to surrender my fear and my attachment to outcome, and I'm going to trust that a miracle will happen. The miracles in form happen because you've surrendered to this. You've let go of your fear, and you're going, okay, well, show me. And they can, and they do happen. If you really overcome the fear. So that's the lesson always. Just your faith is going to be tested, because how will you learn to really let go of your fear unless the fear arises? You won't, will you? So it has to come up in order to be acknowledged, come into your awareness, and then you can go, okay, I see it for what it is. It's just part of this whole thought system, and none of it is true. So that's why no fear is true, no guilt, no sin, no attack on anyone, blame, accusation, attack, complaint. None of these are true, which means they can all be undone. All right. So shall we close it off there? Just do a little closing.
That'll be great. Thank you.
So just close your eyes. Connect with your breath. Take a nice deep breath in. And just give thanks for the session. Thank you for joining for this teaching. It's amazing that we have the truth so clearly explained, and a very practical course to teach us how to apply it in our daily lives. It's truly a gift. I just appreciate it that you've been given the gift of this ability to learn the truth finally, to apply it. As Jesus says, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So this is about ultimate freedom, freedom from pain, from fear, suffering, lack, loss, limitation, scarcity, sickness, and death. It's about letting go of all of that, finding freedom in your mind, freedom to be what you truly are, as you were truly created. So just breathe that in. Give thanks for that. That you're on this path. Once you've started, and these thoughts have come into your mind, you can never go back. There's a little crack in the ego that's come in. A little chink of light. Seen a glimpse of the eternal light. And you will follow it. Holy Spirit will not allow you to forget the light. You will follow it all the way back up the ladder of separation to the oneness that you truly are, that we all are. So as you exhale, just extend that, have a sense of extending this oneness, this expansive feeling, the light outwards. Truth is, there's no real outwards, it's just an extension in your mind. Just feel like you're connecting with every person in your life, people you know, family, friends, acquaintances, and everyone you don't know. Just feel that extension of love outwards. The entire human race, all living creatures on this planet. And imagine it extending out into the solar system, the galaxy, the universe. There are innumerable forms of life in this universe. Ultimately, there's only one life. They all share the same life essence. And right now, you can simply recognize it. You recognize it by extending it in your mind to everyone and everything. Just feel that extension. The more you give it, the more you receive it. So feel that love. That's what you call it, love. It's expansive, infinite, eternal love. It's not a personal love. It's not directed to any specific person or thing. It's beyond that. Just connect with this eternal love. Breathe it in again. Put your hand on your heart center. Breathe it into your heart. Breathe it into your mind. Just notice it. Connect with it. Experience it fully. Appreciate it. Feel grateful for it. Anchor it into your awareness. Set the intention to stay there the rest of the afternoon, on into the evening and your week ahead. So it is said, so it is done. You need to top yourself up, top up your tank of this infinite loving presence. Just use one of the breath breaks I've sent you to do that in the mind training lessons. That's what they're designed to do, just to reconnect you with your source, bring you back into your right mind. Bring happiness and peace and love to your mind. And smile at that thought. Give thanks one more time. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. And carry on with your evening in this hopefully very calm, very connected and expanded state. So thank you for listening. Thank you for joining, Karen. Appreciate that. Those on the WhatsApp group, I hope you enjoy this recording. I'll send you the link to watch it so you can see some of the diagrams and the text I was referring to. So you can watch it on YouTube. Just check out the link I'll send in a text message. And I wish you a very peaceful and loving and expansive evening. Namaste. Thanks, Karen.
Thanks so much, John. Sorry about the noise at the end there. Little Teo woke up and decided that,
fun.
but it was perfect timing because he slept and let me do the rest of it.
I know, didn't hear it. Sorry. Okay. So no session tonight, but tomorrow, if you want to join at 2:30, do that, or in the evening.
Okay, I don't think I'll be able to make it tomorrow. I've got customer visits out, but if I'm back in time, then I will join.
For the evening session?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
No, sorry. The afternoon session.
Afternoon, evening, you'll be back.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could always, just a tip, take your phone. Obviously, you'll have your phone with you. Just go into your car.
Yes.
And go, all right, I'm going to take a little time out here between meetings, whatever. Take 15, 20 minutes, do it in your car, and then continue on with your, so you can integrate it into your day like that. If it works, obviously. If you're in a meeting at 2:30, then it's not. But I'm flexible on the time as well. I mean, I can do it at 3 o'clock. I'm not fussed about that. So just let me know.
Okay. Perfect.
All right.
Thanks so much, Anna. Have
Thanks
a
for
great
joining.
evening. Okay. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.